Welcome, guys, to the SBN Network podcast. I'm your host, Steph, and with me is...
I'm Scott.
Yes.
And I'm Scott. We know how to do intros now.
This is a podcast where we take some deep dives into some wonderful artists and kind of look at their account in a different way, which is always a little bit positive, a little awesome, and you guys can enjoy their accounts with us.
And now that we've gotten more professional, I try not to say any dumb stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I try to at least always end on a good note.
There it is.
So Scott takes his drink.
Nice.
And that's how we start the show.
Perfect.
And so basically, I'm going to welcome you, Dan, because this is been a long time coming because I've been wanting to interview for you, and this is season 3. And so I'm super excited that you said yes, because I was like, oh my gosh, is he going to say it? Because I've been following you for a couple of years now, and whenever I need a deep dive in nostalgia, I'm going to tell you I come to your page because it's one of the coolest things for a comic book nerd is myself to see what's going on.
Nice.
And I had a lot of fun shooting the photo for this, but I also bought a lot of Marvel Legends over the last 2 weeks that I didn't use for your photo, but I'm probably going to take photos of later. So
all right.
Thank you for my recent purchases too.
Awesome. And Dan, honestly, I followed you now for a little bit, but I was introduced to you because of Steph. I hadn't seen your page. She kind of brought me over to your page a few months ago, I would say would be the reason I kind of came across yours. And so it was fun. It was fun to come across it because you're different. You have a different vibe. And like Steph said, you really focus on a lot of those classic Marvel characters. We live in a time where the movies are very big right now.
Oh yeah,
be honest, they're huge, and I love the MCU. I love it. I have a blast. I love watching the movies. It's fun. It's silly. It's great. It's very exciting. But you bring back, like Steph said, the old the X-Men, the old Marvel characters that I read, the ones that I actually read back in the day. I think that's really, really fun. You don't focus on the new movies, the films or anything like that. They show up, but it's not as prominent as some of those characters that a lot of the people who maybe have only watched the movies would not necessarily know who they are, which I think is really kind of fun. So you have a really great page because of that. I think it's really a trip through the world of comic books through the eyes of somebody who really appreciates comics and the way that frames and cells are set up. And I think that's something that's really cool about your feed is it reads, and I don't remember if I wrote that or not, but it does read like a comic book. That's what you're looking at. It's you don't take the approach that a lot of people do with a lot of the trying to make them look more real. You give it that illustrated feel. It feels illustrated. Even though it's a photograph, you give it an illustrated vibe. And I think that's what's really nice. I love your balanced, even light. That's very comic book frame. There are comic book artists, especially in indie comics and stuff, who will do a lot of really heavy contrasty stuff. But
right.
When you look to traditional comic books, you want the whole cell to kind of speak, and you let that happen in your photographs, and it's really cool. I love your page. I absolutely adore it. So
thank you.
I'm excited to kind of dig through it.
Well, there's it's interesting because there was a guy today that tagged me in a couple of posts, and he called it Study of Dan. And I was looking through the notifications and stuff, and I had this long lengthy write-up, and I saw I was tagged in it. And
so Scott.
That was Scott. Scott, I can't see. I'm sorry. I love that. So, when you mentioned that too about hiding in the shadows, Scott, and I apologize. I was looking. I can't see your.
No.
Now I see it.
No, like I said, we've never talked before, and that for everybody, so everybody knows. That's what's really fun about this. Like I said, Steph.
I totally knew that was Scott. By the way, I'm testing you.
No, Dan and I have not had any conversations. There are people that we've had. It's something I really like about this show is. Steph and I will grab kind of different people to talk to. And what's really fun sometimes is when we get to pull somebody who I really haven't interacted with you on social media ever. Like, we haven't had any interactions.
We'll change
And
that. We'll do that
and
now.
yeah, exactly. And that's what's really neat about it. But I've made Steph reach out to people that she didn't even know were like photographers out there, especially when I kind of pull out some of like the really odd ones that I'm like, we need this person. She's like, where did you find this? So it's really cool. Like, and that's what I like about it. And that's the fun. And I'm happy, like, again, that you got to see those like before you got on here and stuff and had some fun with it. So,
Well, to that point, one of the things, and you were talking about the point of views and angles and tilting the camera. I mean, I remember a few years back, and I wasn't even doing this stuff at the time. I was just messing around, taking pictures. And I read some article where it said, like and I think about my daughter right now. She's 14 years old now, but when she was younger, so maybe it was longer than a few years back. But it says something about, like, when you're trying to take a picture of a kid, you want to get down their level. And you think about that, and I started thinking about, like, to your point, like comic books, right? I mean, I still am a big comic book nerd. I grew up watching Spider-Man's Amazing Friends, and one of the biggest things that made me so happy recently was I found the 1982 Incredible Hulk cartoon. That used to, and there was only one season of it, which I was like, it sounds about right, I guess, maybe when I was a kid, but every Saturday, like, I had this big cardboard box at my grandmother's house. I mean, it was like literally like I could stand in it, come to my shoulders. And every Saturday, my day would start off with watching, like, the live action Spider-Man early in the morning. I try to catch that like at 6 or 7 o'clock when they would show it in syndication. And then, as the cartoons came on, I was there. And I remember, like, when, Spider-Man, His Amazing Friends, or the Hulk came on, I had to have like my Mego Spider-Man or my Mego Hulk right in my hands as I was doing that stuff. And I always appreciated the cartoons. I always appreciated the comics. And then, I got into high school. I never had heard of Wolverine and X-Men before. And as I was maybe like 14, something like that, I started, like, there's a buddy of mine, and we just reconnected on Facebook recently, actually. He's a fantastic artist. I mean, he used to draw and stuff in school, but he introduced me to the X-Men and Wolverine. I was like, Wolverine, who's this guy? And I saw it, like, this is great. And I really got into the Claremont stuff. I started, looking at the Uncanny X-Men classics. I love the way they told a story, right? Because you think about comics and you're like, well, okay, my grandma used to call them funny books and stuff like that. And I was like, all right. But, I mean, you look at that stuff and you look at the panels, and some of the stuff that had the most impact on me was like some of those more dynamic poses and angles, right? I mean, you look at that and it gets back to that whole point. When you're down on that level, and people will inbox me all the time, and I try to get to as many. I mean, I will try to go in there and clear out all the messages. And I said, I literally get more stuff there than I do at work. But, I've always taken the position too, like, don't ever be a butt. I mean, if someone's asking you for your help and you respond back to them, that's how I am in real life. That's how I am in my, away from real life. I try to always, be that guy. It's never like, there's a lot of big accounts out there that are fantastic. Yeah. There's a lot of small accounts out there that are like leaps and bounds better than mine. I've said that to people before. I said, your following count doesn't dictate your talent, and the likes don't dictate your talent. I felt ass backwards into a lot of it. Sometimes you have one or two shots that go crazy and it works out. I don't think I'm any more talented than anybody else out there. I never have. I mean, there's stuff out there I'm like, I don't even know why people are like. There was shots I literally was going to trash. And I said, you know what? I'll just post this, and it took off. I mean, it's a little bit of talent and a lot of luck, and I mean that. But you get down, and there's some of those like comic book, the panels and frames. And when you're down that angle, I mean, you feel like you're in the moment. And the thing I tell people consistently is, like, whenever you're taking a shot, and I am by no means what I would call myself a photographer, right? I don't know that I can go out there and do your wedding. I don't know that. Every once in a while you do something like that's great, but you can Google search a million other people that's got stuff out there too. So I try not to like get too confident in myself. But when you're down in the shot and you're in that moment, to me, when you actually feel it, right? If there's a shot where someone's in pain and you feel they're in pain, if there's a shot where someone's like coming out victorious and you feel that victory, right? Or that hard-earned fight, that battle, or that really touching, quiet moment where you're just like kind of escaping from it. Where, I mean, when you can put that into a shot, that's magic. And when you do that, right, that's when you really sort of say, how do I take the person And I think about it from my perspective too. What can I do to make me feel like I'm here witnessing this, right? I'm either a person in the crowd, I'm part of the scene. That's, to me, that's the magic. And that is a very, very simple thing to do, right? It's just, don't, it's like, it goes back to that whole, like, how to take pictures of your kid. Don't tower above your kid. Get down on their level, right? Get eye to eye with them. It's a better
part of them.
Exactly. And I think, a lot of the cinematic stuff, a lot of the comic stuff, right? When they do that's the thing that really, in my mind, resonates well, right? Because, you are part of the scene, and there's nothing, I've seen some great stuff, right? Captain America is getting ready to fight Thanos. And to your point, the MCU, I love the MCU. I do.
Yeah.
But I still love the comic stuff, right? I mean, it's amazing how so many people, they're first, and I see it all the time in the comments. I've seen it in Facebook battles. I've seen it in a lot of places, like, oh, you get your content from the MCU. Like, what? If they do, that's fine too, right? I mean, it's all cool. Like, there's no right, there's no wrong answer. If people told me, like, hey, I don't understand yourself, like, oh, that's okay. I mean, it's a big world out there. I try to take it personal and you go on, but everybody gets their first experience somehow, right? And that's the thing is, I came in, I looked at stuff from, this writer or this artist perspective, but there was a lot of stuff way before that. So I tried to so I'm gonna do it justice. And there's a buddy of mine. He goes by the handle Lord Retail, Jermaine Exum here, and he recently, congratulations, he managed Acme Comics for years. Now he bought it and he owns it, and we've known each other for a long, long time. When I first moved to Greensboro, and I went there and I bought a lot of back issues of the old omnibus, the old Spider-Mans, the old X-Men, really trying to get back to, I want to go back to the stuff. I know the general idea, but I want to reread it.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, people say, like, where do you get your ideas from? I have not read any of the newer stuff, with the exception of the newer Daredevil stories. Excuse me. I've sort of stayed away from it, especially with my whole X-Men story. I'm trying to keep, that story original as I can. But I really kind of went back to a lot of the old content to sort of say, what were the characters like back then? What did they do? I try to recreate some of the old covers that are impactful, like Spider-Man walking away, like Spider-Man No More. I did one a couple years ago where I did a cutout. I had searched it, and it had his, I cut it, I printed it, cut it out, and had it up in the main focus, and it had his suit in the trash can. I set this diorama alleyway up, and I put a bunch of fake snow that someone on another page, I won't name the page, said looks like trash. Like, all right, well, thank you, I appreciate that. Cool. Cool, maybe man. It does look like garbage. It's an alley. It's in New York. I mean, there's a good chance. But and it has Spider-Man walking off in the background, kind of faded out. But it was like it was a Tom Holland head on a Cowboy Bebop body. Get the cool. And I like that kind of stuff. I like that because it's like that's sort of the nature of Spider-Man. He never gets it right. He's always struggling. Like, do I want to do this? He puts it to the side. Like, that's the sort of stuff, that old material, right? And you think about the older stuff, like, it's old, it's cheesy, it's corny. Yeah, there's probably some mix of that stuff too, but there are some pretty powerful moments in the old stuff, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. You can't discredit something because it has its cheesy moments. I mean, again,
cheesy can be good too.
Exactly.
Like, I like cheesy.
I'm a freaking Star Wars fan. There's so much cheesy crap in there. I'm not going to pretend there isn't. And it's like, but that doesn't mean I don't like it because of that. And again, as somebody who has read a lot of the old stories and stuff, I totally agree with you. Like, there's nothing wrong with you can have cheese and powerful. Like, they can go together. They can live in the same space. Like, it's not they are not mutually exclusive. Like, you don't have to just have cheesy or just have like it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be a little bit of both. And that's we forget, comic books were supposed to appeal to a broad range, of people and ages. Like, you weren't just trying to appeal to just kids or just adults. You wanted something that could kind of click with different sides. So the things that maybe the 10-year-olds were attracted to were not necessarily the things that the 30-year-olds were attracted to, but then they met in the middle and found common ground. And so I agree with you 100%, 100% on that.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Is like, I think, and I would say action figure collecting has definitely probably, you know, put a spotlight on that too. I mean, it's like what age range is appropriate? I say all of it, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're a kid getting into this for the first time, right, or you're an older adult and it's like I'm a 46-year-old guy, right?
Yeah.
I love this stuff, and I don't see that ever changing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it was for me. It was very much a happy place. There's stuff that happens when you're a kid and you're growing up. We all have moments, right? We all have stuff,
Hmm.
but it was a nice escape. And for me, like from my real world, it's a nice escape sometimes too, because it's a world, as I've said before, is you can create the world, you can create the story, you can control the outcome. And even if it's just one snap, even just one shot, even if it's not like an ongoing story, I mean, you can take something, it's like, whatever reason, it speaks to you. And maybe it's just something you're like, that would be really funny if that happened. Or maybe it's like, something where it's like, this is something you think about. Like, I'm a runner, so I get up like at 4:15 in the morning. I'm out running in the dark, and I'm churning through ideas. Right, I'm doing that stuff. It's me. It's the coyotes, which is odd because we're in town, but they are apparently rampant through here. It's the raccoons running, hoping that they don't bite you because they got rabies. It's all that stuff. And other than that, what gets me through it, especially if I'm trying to hit like harder paces, is like just thinking about like okay, ideas, and my mind just kind of wanders. And I get some of my best inspiration just riding around, lying in bed at night, or just out running at like 4:15 in the morning, because it's where like you kind of like, depending on what you're feeling, especially because if I'm listening to music, a song comes on, I was like, that makes me think of something, right? And the inspiration just it comes from a lot of places, but I try to think about something like what makes me feel a connection, whether it's laughter, whether it's sadness, whether it's like triumph, whether it's anger, it's frustration. What makes me sort of feel that? And if you can feel it, right, chances are you can make someone else feel it, right? So
Yeah.
you got to put some emotion behind it, I think. You don't have to, but for me, I think that's my thing. I try to put some sort of emotion behind it. I get those little bursts of inspiration, and then I think about it and I think about it, and I try to jot the stuff down and remember it so I don't forget it later. But that's the stuff I feel like that's what I like, and I think for a wide variety of people, right? Whether I'm that 6-year-old boy or girl that's like looking at this stuff, right? And I don't know, you never know what people are going through either. I mean, maybe somebody's got some stuff that's going on rough in their life and they need a little bit of inspiration. If it comes from a picture of an action figure as some 46-year-old guy stood up, or anyone else that's like, there's that one moment that resonates, that's kind of cool to me. And I like to hear that stuff. I mean, I get those messages sometimes on my inbox too. And, I love this hobby. I do. I love it.
Yeah.
Because, I used to draw a lot. I used to be, my daughter does it. Thank goodness she kind of kept it up. But I mean, it's become the replacement to me drawing. It's my new art form because I don't have to erase as much and vacuum as much. So that's kind of nice. But
Vacuum.
it's all those shavings from the eraser.
Oh,
like, it takes, but you can set that up, and it's like it's bringing that vision to life. And I don't know. For me, it's like it's so cool. Like Steph, I love your stuff. I'm a big fan of your stuff. I mean, people look at my page and they think, "Oh, this guy's." I got Dragon Ball Z. I got a ton of anime stuff. We watch, and you and I've talked about that. My daughter and I love MHA. We love Demon Slayer. I mean, I have bought all those figures, and I'm going to say they're for her, but they're probably for me. But for both of us, we love Bluey. We watch Bluey together. I'm like, hey, we should do a cool shot with like Bluey and her dad and drive their little Jeep. And I said, I want to go out to the marina. I want to have them sitting there on like a little grassy hill with the little Jeep or their little SUV watching the sun go down. I said, that's Bluey, right? That sort of speaks to like the moments in those shows. And if you can watch any, I mean, and clearly we got some Bluey fans here. Like, that show can hit you in the feels. And, that's the cool thing is, right? If you can do that, it doesn't matter what the character or what the show is. If you can find like that emotional connection, I think that's the thing I like. That's what I like to put out there. And I think from what I've seen, people have an appreciation and maybe a connection with that. So,
and that's the thing, like you just said with Bluey, and I love that, is it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It doesn't matter who the characters are. It's if you can take those and make them feel a certain way. With that actually goes into my first question is when you're actually planning a shoot, do you have the idea of where you want it to go first and then you kind of incorporate the characters into it? Or do you take the characters and then sort of like, this is the story I want to tell with them? Or is it sometimes both? It can go either way. Like, I don't know. It's everybody's like a little bit different with that. I know some people really, it's character driven first, and then they sort of like really like that figure and they're like, I'm going to make this happen. I like this character, or vice versa. So
it's
curious.
Yeah, it's both, because I'll go into some things with an idea and I'll go off in left field, and the more I'm trying to get everything put in place, and then I'll say, you know what, I think I want to do something different. I walked away from a lot of ideas and chased something else, and the idea that I had in my head has stayed on the cutting room floor. It never saw the light of day. And then I've got some stuff where I know exactly what I want to do. I think about it. I go in there and I hit it. The one thing I've said to anyone I've talked to about it is I have never had a single shot that I have finished and posted that ever looked like what I imagined it to. Right?
That's photography sometimes, though. I swear that's photography in all aspects. It's like and that's sort of the trick with, and don't get me wrong, I know what happens with painting and other, like, art for illustration and stuff, but I feel like photography, you're so dependent on your subjects, the scene, like that the opportunity for things to kind of go in a different direction are super high, because like you can't control every aspect of a photo, especially when you're dealing with, we have a little bit more control because we're dealing with toys, but like, if you're dealing with real people, there's a lot of opportunity for things to shift and go in a different direction. Maybe you get guided by your subject and your material. Maybe they start making decisions that make you start photographing differently. Even a scene in general, like a place, I've been places and like the light starts changing like that. And all of a sudden, what was interesting to me no longer is interesting to me, and my eyes start shifting. So it's like the idea of your end result not necessarily being what your initial thought was makes perfect sense. I feel like that's exactly what should happen.
Yeah.
It's what made you do it? What made you start doing it? Did you just like one day just say, I'm going to take a photo of a toy, or was it something you had seen other people do and you were like, I want to try it too?
Yeah. So a couple of things, I used to sit around, once the iPhones came out, and I would take pictures of things on my desk, and I've still got some very, very, very crude pictures of like, was it Stickfus? I think and like Spider-Man. I'm just, post some stuff and mess around with it on my desk when I was working.
Was this first photo over here? Was this one on your desk? Was this like?
Yeah, that was actually beside of the light over here. I had that figured. I was like, oh, this looks great with the light. I took it and I've stuck with it ever since. But
it's your icon.
It is, and people change their stuff all the time, and I love it. But I thought for me, it's like, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to keep it. And when I lost my account, I lost access to my account last year, and I started over again. I said, I'm going to keep the same one. I got back into it, so I'm going to keep the same one, because I think it's gotten to be almost, people. Superman is, I'll say too, my favorite character. I mean, he's one. It's like I kind of liken it to Mickey Mouse with Disney for a long time, right? The most identifiable character with the brand Disney, but they did nothing with it for so many years, And Superman is one of those where, like, if I'm going to do something with Superman, it's got to be right. And, I can't do him an injustice, if you will. So I rarely shoot him, and I've made promises I'm going to do more, I'm going to do more, I'm going to do more. And I've got some ideas. So I think I'm definitely going to try to put those, behind the camera or in front of the camera at some point. But I've kept that picture for a while, and it's just been my sort of avatar, I guess.
That's good though. I love that. Your light has changed over time.
Well, that's
really
a lamp.
Interesting.
That's just a lamp.
So interesting. So so your most recent photo over here, is that we're using like a lamp or window light, or what was how do you normally light your stuff now?
Yeah, it's usually window light. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing is, and I have a huge appreciation for the people that can manipulate artificial light.
Yeah.
I remember I posted one shot, a few shots on the articulated comic book art page, and people would ask me, "What are you doing for light?" I said, "Window."
Yeah.
And this one guy, he said, "Hey, that light's kind of harsh." Like, well, that's the sun, but you can bend it, right? And you can play with it. And like you had said too, I mean, as the day goes and shifts, right, it changes the light. Like, okay, well, that makes me alter the shot a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's something about the real light. It's like, well, that's the real world, and
Well,
yeah,
well, your window light, like, I mean, and like you said, the real world, I want to harp on that. I think that is what gives your style such a distinct feel, is that even it's consistent, it's not contrasty, it's very comic booky, it's very it's got that animation feel from like the old animated series. Like, it reminds me sometimes of, like, watching like Batman and stuff like that. Like, everything, you can
90s.
see everything. Yeah, 90s and like late 80s and stuff. Like, it feels like
Yep.
everything that you see is supposed to be there, and it's intentional, because illustrators don't put things in that they don't want to be there. So
right,
like, photographers have a little more tendency to kind of hide things because we don't want certain things to show up, but you don't, because you treat your photographs more like an animator. Like, you give it like, everything in here is very visible. I feel like I would have a tendency, when I shoot the way I shoot, is I would be making certain areas of this photo on the right kind of fade away into shadows, into darkness and stuff like that, where you let everything in the scene be a part of the scene. You're letting the person there, who's witnessing this image, be part of that image, instead of dictating what they are supposed to be, like, taking in. And I think that's something that gives you a real comic booky feel, more so than a lot of other people we've had on here. It's that, like, everybody in this, even sub characters on the floor, and like kneecaps and heads, and like, they're all, the lighting is the same on that as the two subjects in the middle. And I think that's really fascinating. I think that's just a really cool way of shooting.
Yeah.
Um,
thanks.
and I love that about your feed. I love the consistency of your feed. I think I'm such a sucker for that. Everybody knows I talk about it all the time. But I like that your Instagram page reads like a whole, like, it's a whole experience. You scroll through it and you get to witness it, like, in order. And it's really neat. It's really cool how you do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Some people will. I did this a few times. I went back, and as I hit certain milestones on followers, I kind of would do a post in the story to remind everybody. Say we all, we start somewhere, and I would go back to my first handful of pictures of me with a floating Superman in the grass, or some stuff where I kind of played around trying to figure out. At first I did a lot of crazy stuff with filters and things, and I started realizing, like, the more I look at it, the more I can't see what's going on. And you hit the nail on the head, right? Like, I want, in this particular show, I want everyone to be visible, because I need everyone to know that's the Justice League. And while the focus is on Omni-Man, you can tell that that's Batman. Hopefully you can tell that's Wonder Woman, Robin.
Very clearly.
Aquaman. Yeah. And, it's, if you're going to go through all the trouble to set that up, then you definitely want to make sure, that, I got the low battery alert thing, so I just had to top that off for a second. But you want everyone to know that, like, this is, if you're going to do all that trouble to set the scene up, you got to make sure that stuff is visible, because it tells a story too, right? The importance is Omni-Man is one in there, and he just went through the whole Justice League, right? And he's looking for Superman, and the thing that's kind of cool about that, at least from my perspective, is everybody's like, you got to do Superman. Superman's not in the shot. Superman's nowhere to be seen. It's the one picture, right? But what it does, and this is the thing that I love, is you're like, oh man, Superman's going to come in there. He's going to rip this guy. It's going to be a huge battle. And for me, and I'm the one that took the shot. I'm like, I want to see this happen. I'm like, wait a minute, I can make that happen. But
it's your choice.
Yeah, it's right. And it's like, and so then you start to ask too, like, well, do I do it or do I not? Do I leave the outcome up to the imagination of the viewer, right? And I think for a lot of what I do, that's the thing that I kind of enjoy the most, is you leave it like, well, what's going to happen next, right? I could tell you the story, but I don't know, maybe you got a better idea in your head. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes I'll bring the closure to things. Sometimes I'll like, you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. It's a snapshot at a moment in we'll call it life if we want to call it life, but it's a moment in time.
Yeah.
And you get
Then
that
you
snap.
figure out the rest.
You figure out the rest, right? Well, what do you want to happen? What do you want to see happen? And maybe somebody goes out there too and says, you know what? I'm going to finish this for you. And that would be kind of cool too, right? If someone would go out there and look at those things, like, okay, I want to say what comes next. Here's what I think should happen. I mean, that's fantastic. There was a huge collaboration. I called it the big ass collaboration that I had reached out to probably about close to 20 different guys. And for those of you watching, I am sincerely, I apologize that I have not got this and brought this to fruition yet. I got sidetracked and I've told them, but we talked about, I said, let's just do one big ass collaboration. That's a story. And I'll do the story and each of us will take certain aspects of it. And it's a single thread going through, but everybody's going to do their own different. I want to do that. And for those guys that are watching, we will definitely do that at some point when life cools down and I stop with my own little side project I did with the X-Men Rising thing. But I thought that'd be kind of cool. Everybody's different take. It reminds me of the old Eastman Laird stuff, right? Where they had all the different guest artists and writers come in and telling different. And we're going to have the same story, but it's like, okay, and it's like, well, who do you want to use? What characters do you want to use? And we talked about, like, we were calling it a traveler or something like that. And this guy was going through the different universes and timelines, and as he's going through on this like single sinister mission, right? And they don't know what it is. You got people looking through the different realities and really sort of saying, okay, everybody's got to get there in time to stop him, right? So they sort of call all these different cats, and I said, it could be anybody, man. It could be Bluey, it could be Superman, it could be He-Man, it could be She-Ra, it could be Wonder, whoever you want to pick. And the idea is, let's do somebody different. Everybody pick somebody different, right? And kind of go through all these different universes. And that would be kind of cool to me because I would be curious to see what other people would do with it. Like I'll say, I'll do a general thing. You tell me what you got, and I'll come write the story around it. We'll see what we can put together. And that's where kind of like this shot. It's like I can do this one piece, but then I want to see what the next person can do with it. Right? What do you do after that? Because that would be an interesting project. And I hope there are people out there that when they see that, they're like, hey, I want to see this thing to fruition. Take your shot at it. What do you want to happen? Tag me. Let me see it. I would love to see what other people, what they walk away with and ideas they come up with.
Yeah, do it. Finish the story. There is and that is part of, I think, the toy photography community that I do enjoy is the collaboration. I love when people like collaborate and, tell a bigger picture or work together with like the same characters or, call and response. Like I know there's some of that going on and stuff. I think that's really cool. And I love anytime I catch on to that happening, I'm always like fascinated. And Steph knows I talk about it all the time. That's one of the things I find fascinating about the doll community. Doll photographers collaborate constantly. Like there's all these like events and stuff where the hashtag is synced up and they like create these big elaborate stories and they all go to this gala together and they're all it's wild and people all over the world. And I'll just like follow these hashtags and I'm just fascinated by it. And why not with this kind of stuff? Why not with action figures? I think it's a great idea.
That's old.
This is great, but this is literally like you're still this one of these photos when we have people on here. I love seeing where the continuation is, like where the story like of you, not necessarily the stories you tell, but the story of you exists. And this running theme, two people running towards you, obviously very comic book influenced, but it shows up throughout your entire story on your feed, which is why I felt the need to do a chase scene. I had to like, it wasn't an option. I had to have somebody chasing somebody because this is a recurring concept throughout all of your photography that I think is really neat. And I love when people have that little element that pops up here and there and will reoccur like every few months. Like you'll see it. It's like, wait a minute, this is a thing. And I just love that Steph picked this photo because it's very in many ways it's very different from the direction you've gone now, like where your work is currently.
Mhm.
You're outside. It's like, there's a very different feel here, but at the same time, you're still experiencing that like somebody behind somebody else and that person
Mhm.
closer to the scene. I love it. I love it. Steph, this was such a good pick. Such a
Yeah.
freaking good pick.
I remember that shot very, very well. I was so proud of that shot when I took that because I was trying to get the wires up. I was out near the marina and I'm on the trail and people were walking by like, what is this guy doing on the ground? Like, hey, how's it going? And a lot of the trails I run, but I do love the outdoor stuff. I do love the outdoor shots. And I think I did another one where I had one of the ninjas. I remember there was a hurricane coming through and I went to the marina. And because I run those trails a lot, I know how to sneak around the fence. The marina was closed. The storm was coming in. And I went down to the rocks. It was one of the same ninjas, but I think he was in a blue or black gi. And I position him doing like a kick. He's got his leg kind of like bent up, like he's getting ready to do a forward kick, his feet poised out, and he's on a rock out looking the lake as the storm's coming. I mean, trees are over there. Those pine trees were like falling, snapping behind me. Like, I gotta be quick, I gotta be quick. And I took that picture before the storm came, and I was like, that was one of the pictures. I don't think we've seen it that much, but it's one of the ones I was most proud of. And I'll go back every once in a while, I'll look at that thing. I'm just like, I really enjoyed the moment because I knew I was like, no one was there. The storm was coming. You got this little, ninja figure over there, like, practicing. And I think I did the Bruce Lee quote too. It's like, I don't fear the man that knows like a million kicks or something. I fear the man who like practices a million kicks once or something like that. I'm probably butchering it right now as I'm trying to think on the spot, but I love that quote and I thought it matched that picture very well. So I love that spot. It's one of my favorite spots. So I'm glad, Steph, you picked that one. that's got a lot of fond memories.
I went pretty far down your page because you had a lot going on, and I was excited to see outdoor photos. So it kind of goes into this one too. So.
Yeah, Lino and the Golden Axial. I love that. that is beside my driveway.
This is you though. Like again, we're going back, but it's those comic book dynamic poses, the poses that almost don't feel possible. some of those positions that these characters get themselves in, these really intense, like you just see like, shoulders that coming out of sockets and necks twisting into crazy directions like that. You do that wild classic comic book inspired posing that I love. Like it reminds me of the not in a bad way at all. In the Black Widow movie where they keep joking about the fact that why does Black Widow do that thing where she poses and like her sister's making fun of her. He's like, why do you do that? Why do you always do that thing where you pose and you throw your hair back? And like, but it is like, that's such a fun thing. And it's the fun thing about comic books. And as something I've always loved about comic books is, I love when, Cap is coming at the front of the frame with the shield in front of him. And he's just like, his whole upper body is twisted with one leg out this way. And he's just ready to smash something. Like, I love that. And you do it so well. You do it so well. You continue to do it so well from the beginning, like these really dynamic poses. I love it. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's I tell people too, a lot of times it's about the angle because that's where you really have to like get down with the camera and figure out like what angle really illustrates that pose. But
yeah, that's where we are. So
well,
no big deal.
On this shot, I'd like to point out, like, Steph, like your work is a big inspiration to me because I love how you do bokeh effects outside. I love your stuff. I show your stuff to my daughter all the time, and she loves it. I mean, we're big fans. You have an amazing talent, and I've said it to other people before. I know I've said that to you, and I mean that because your outdoor stuff, I love. I love just the look and someone I can appreciate who we both. I think we all three seem to enjoy the natural light effects. But a lot of what I do, like, and I mean this in all sincerity, I'll see a shot like yours, like I want to create something like that. And this particular shot, I was looking at thinking like that kind of reminds me of your shot, and I mean that 100%. Like that's got the same feel that your stuff has. So, for me, when I look at something like that, and if I sort of say it looks like something I would see on your page, that was, where I'm satisfied with it. That means it's good. So
No, I know exactly what you're saying. That's very much a Steph vibe right here. Like,
yes.
a lot of those, even those dark spots in the background, like you said, with the bokeh and all that, like, and then the subject popping in the front. Like, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love some Thundercats. So I had to
Yeah.
find some way to put that.
I've been trying not to get like a million action figures, but it's gonna
God.
happen anyway. So we'll see how
It's so hard. It's so hard.
They're
I see every
all
once in a
over
while you
right
pick
now.
up something new on your story. I'm like, well, we're all in this together, right?
Absolutely.
All right. More memory lanes.
So here we go.
Okay.
Going back to like the kind of the chase feel, like, but even that, like, you really captured Wolverine here. He's like, his running, his coming at you is very, very classic comic book, like very animalistic. And then you got Hulk behind him, just like tearing through it. Like, it's just, I love that. I love your choice and the way that you make your characters bend, run, move. Like, it feels like exactly where the illustrator would have wanted to capture this. Like, this is the position, like that, he's kind of down and coming forward, and you get to really see like the muscles in his one arm. And it's, I don't know, it's very cool. You see your comic influence. And again, Dan, I have to say, it's taken me this long to tilt my camera.
Tilt the camera,
I
man.
finally did it thanks to you. And everybody can now finally take a breath and say, look, Scott finally tilted the camera, because
I like what you did. I love it. I think it was great how you did that. You got Fett in the background. I mean, to me, like that, something as simple as just tilting the camera, right? Something it gives it that little extra sense
it feels
of motion. Yeah, right. And I mean, it just this versus this. I mean, it's so subtle, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to do. And I started doing it, and I'll try stuff on hand. Sometimes, and you know this too, if you're doing a camera with, you can't get the aperture you want or and the lighting, but so you have to use a stand for it or a tripod, and that little able tilt hold it's perfect. I'm going to get that. I mean, there are a lot of shots I'll take where I'm a little to the left, I'm a little to the right, I'm straight on, and I'll do a lot of them kind of even.
Yeah.
And then I'll do that tilt. I'm like, someone's going to say, oh, there he goes, tilting the camera. But I love it. It just,
it looks right.
Yeah, it does, right? And maybe I need some tilt the other direction some. Maybe I'm a little jacked up in my shoulders, so I can go the other direction. But I just it really, like this one. I love this one personally because it's like he's there. Wolverine's like he's got that sense of caution about him, right? And again, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier on. It's like, what do you feel in the shot, right? I mean, now obviously he's got the heightened senses. I'm going to say it's offset by the fact they're in a sewer.
Yeah.
But the Hulk's there. I remember back to something Chris Carter from the X-Files said too, right? This shot, obviously the Hulk's blurred out, Wolverine's the focus. And I did something similar with the Batman shot where I had a bunch of extra Build-A-Figure hands like reaching out for Batman, and like you don't see anything but the hands, and it's really just these extra arms I've got held up by wires reaching out. And I think I even referenced it in the shot too, but like. And to your point, it's not completely blacked out where you can't see it. You see the stuff in the frame, but Chris Carter said one time too. Sometimes the scariest stuff, right, is the stuff that you can't see, where you leave your own imagination up to it, right? And that always resonated with me because I watched it in one of the interviews from the X-Files when they used to do like the interviews on, I think some of the DVD sets I got. He talked about that. He was great at doing that because you see that stuff, it's there, it's in the frame, but you don't get 100% focus on it, right? Now, we all know who the Hulk is. There's no surprise there. But, kind of like we said, too, for some people, they didn't grow up on comics.
Yep.
You see the Hulk a little bit in MCU. People may not know who the Hulk is. I mean, people, when they asked about, like, Silver Surfer going for the Infinity Gauntlet, like, they didn't, where did you get that idea? Like, well, that was the original story.
Yeah.
People don't know that, right? Because you got a lot of people who they didn't grow up with that stuff.
Yeah.
So, to not be able to see it, to know that that's going on. I mean, even in this particular shot, and I've done a couple others where they're in the background, you can see them, but they're a little, more faded out. Like that's the kind of cool thing, right? It's like the stuff that you don't see. You know it's coming, you know it's there. Kind of gives you that feeling of like being on edge. Like this is not going to go well. This is a battle getting ready to happen, right?
Mhm.
And then I do my classic. All right, you take it from there. I'm
Yeah.
out. But that's what I really enjoyed about this shot, and that's what I was hoping would kind of come through when I posted this one. So,
Dan, do you make your own dios, or do you have dios that you buy? Do you like what is your dio situation?
yeah, so I've tried my hand at a few of them.
Okay.
I am a perfectionist,
Yeah.
and if I can't get it perfect, then I'm like, I don't want to do this. I've built a few. There was one I did a couple of Christmases ago. It was actually a video I made where it was a tavern, and I had Peter Parker was outside the mask off on the cell phone, right? And it was all the snow around, and inside, I think I did it to like Jingle Jangle. And it had like all the Avengers in there. Like Tony Stark was, playing saxophone. Cap was on guitar. Black Widow was in there. Thor was drinking a beer. Like yeah, and I had built that one, and it did not hold up well over the test of time. Like some of the black trim started falling off and things. So there are people that I have bought dios from. I bought some of the stuff you can get, straight from the stores and online retailers. Some is custom. I buy stuff sometimes from like, Michael's, or I'll buy stuff from Hobby Lobby, or, the pet store is fantastic for like a lot of your trees and your stuff that goes in like the wood and things that I get there too. Or if you see something at Target, I do a mix. I'll look at stuff and I'll think, this would actually work out really well, and maybe I could put this into the shot somehow and use it at some point. And unfortunately, I have like containers now of diorama pieces. But I love the craftsmanship that people put into the custom stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah.
for like this particular one, the sewer, I worked with the guy and I laid out the plans. I drew what I want. I said, I want the pieces where I can move it around and do different dimensions with it. So I've had a couple designed where I said, this is what I want to do. I sketched out all the work. I said, here's how I want to go. I want different channels of water so I can make something. People are like, where do you get all these dios? Like, it's the same dio. I just had the people build it in a way where I can modify it.
Yeah.
Make it look like a different dio.
You got to make the money go
Yeah.
as far as you can with this stuff, right? So I do stuff like that, and I'll mix and match pieces too if it looks right. And the beautiful thing about it, and you kind of call this out too, like when the stuff's out of focus, if everything's in the background, you see it. And I've told people this too, like when they were asking about dios and how you use it, I said, you want the focus to be like here on Wolverine, and secondary you want to be on the Hulk, and they are in a sewer. But I mean, do people see that right off the bat? Do they know that? Maybe it catches your eye. It definitely makes it seem like there's a scene there, but how much attention people pay to that last part, I'm not sure. I mean, I think it varies from person to person.
Yeah.
But I've told people too, like you can do some creative things if you just let the other stuff kind of go out of focus, and you really want all your attention on that main character, that main concept that you want everyone to see. The background is the background. You got to remember that, right? It shouldn't stand out. You can appreciate the craftsmanship. It looks good. Is that 3D? Is that a picture? You can't really tell. And you really shouldn't, right? You should know enough to know that there's something going on back there. They're in this area, but whether that's a foam dio, a custom, something you bought, or just a piece of paper off a print. And it's hard to say when it's going to fade out like that. And that's kind of the point, right? You don't want that to draw your attention away from, what we're trying to show. It's like, Wolverine tiptoeing through like what's going to be a very interesting scenario popping up here.
You want it to complement the frame. You don't want it to take away from the main story, the main subject. Like, yes, you want to have the best display, the best background as you can. You want it to feel good. You want it to feel the way you imagined it feeling, but you don't want that to take everybody's eyes away from Wolverine. Obviously, he is, your primary focus here. It shouldn't be like, oh, look at the brick. Like kind of defeat the purpose of the image. So
right. Is that pipe functional?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I do like the classic yellow suit too. So
Oh,
Yeah.
God,
How
I
can
love
you
the
not,
classic
right?
yellow
That's
suit.
that's the go-to.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
This is really fun because I like these. I've actually really loved these figures, and I thought this was so well done. Such a good take on it's at every once in a while. I like when a photographer reminds all of us that we are toy photographers.
Yeah.
You know, we spend so much time, you know, trying to recreate scenes and or make them look super real or this and that. Like I love a good moment when a toy photographer is able to do this, where it's like, yep, it's a freaking toy.
Yep.
That's what this is.
I'm
And
8
it's
years
fun.
old again, right? I'm 8
Exactly.
years old again, and that's not a bad thing, right? That's
Exactly.
yeah.
I love this image. What an image. This is such a good one.
Yeah.
Such a good
That's probably
image.
one of my favorites, right? Because I mean, I think you said it perfectly, right? It's a toy, it's an action figure, right? Like we can't take ourselves too seriously here, right? It's I've said it before. I see it. You know, it's a hobby. It's a hobby. It's not a contest, right? This is stress relief. This is just like trying to recreate a moment of happiness. And you know, for me, I'm every bit that kid at 8 years old with my figures in my hand watching this stuff on cartoons on Saturday. And to me, that's what it's all about, right? And you hopefully, my biggest hope is that someone looks at this and they're like, yeah, I'm there with you. And that's all you want, right? You just want someone to look at that and, you know, maybe take them back to a happier day, right? Or a more pure point in their life. And, you know, for me, that's kind of the goal. That's why I do it.
Love that.
classic.
Oh.
This is so comic booky to me. I love this. I love this frame. Like I love this frame. I love the way it's set up. I love everything about this. It feels like just all the characters there because we've run into. So one of the things that I talk about with comic books versus comic book movies that we've run into is licensing and money and budgets and all this crap that you have to deal with when you're dealing with like the MCU and Fox properties and Sony properties, this and that. One of the things I love so much about comic books is most of the time people can just cross over into wherever they want to go. It was, you know, like this person can show up here, this character can show up here. And that was one of the things that I've always enjoyed reading Marvel comics because I tend to be Marvel driven in my brain, and my brain's just wired that way. Is you're seeing a frame here with a bunch of characters, and that to me is one of the fun things about comics and the X-Men specifically, but comics in general, that for a little bit now they've gotten, you know, now that their budgets have gotten higher, it's changed a little. But you know, you look at some of the early MCU movies and it was always like, man, I wish this person was here, I wish this person was here. And I know like in the Deadpool movie he even makes a joke about like when he gets to the door and he's like, it's almost like they didn't have the budget to pay anybody else to be in this place. But it's true. That. And that's an accurate thing, and that's what I really this photo stands out to me because of that, because of the fact that this is what comic books are about. Like all the heroes, like, you know, all the heroes together, all the villains together, all the, you know, whatever the case may be. And there's just a fun story to be told here. This is like, you know, just like, I love Gambit and it's such a perfect, like, it's like,
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like this shot, like I was messing around with that Mayfex Gambit, which I love. And I propped him up like that. And at first I thought, you know, maybe play him pool. And I was like, you know, what could I do? And that's the thing about how I come at things too. And I think you asked that question before about inspiration. I mean, I'll play with the figure and pose it. Get it out of the box. And then I'm like, what can I do around this pose for a scene? And a lot of times that will dictate, at least for like a single shot type situation, what I end up doing. I built this whole scene around Gambit being posed like that when I got him out of the box. And he sat there like that, I kid you not, for a couple of months. Before I figured out what to do with it. Because the ideas kept rolling. Like, I got to do something with this. I can't put him back in the box until I do this shot. And, you know, that was fun. And then the other thing about this too, right, is like, you know, it's so hard to get all those characters in a shot. But I love the sense. I love a shot where it's just a single focus, but I also like it too when different people can get a lot of characters in. And it's hard. I mean, I probably repositioned my angle of where I was to get just if there were 50 to 60, there were probably 50 to 60 shots I took of this.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't decide which ones. I had Rogue facing this way. I thought, you know what? No, that's going to get too many butt comments. I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just put it back the other way. And then I had Rogue and Storm kind of walking side by side. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool too. But I went this direction where she's looking, Gambit, clearly, Gambit is Gambit. But trying to get Bishop, like, where do I want Bishop? Where do I want, Colossus here? And I want to make sure, like, you can see Scott being Scott, like, looking over, like, what are you doing? Gambit's over there. Setting up that scene, again, it gets back to what we talk about with angles and what you can see and what do you want in focus? Do you want Gambit in focus or do you want Rogue in focus? And I think with Rogue being, and I think I might have posted it both ways where it shifted the focus in the shot because I couldn't decide. I'm like, I'll let the viewer decide which one they. Yeah, that's kind of cool too. But to me, like the one you picked here, that's the one, right? Because like Gambit, you get the idea and you put the focus up front, and I like the way that one turned out. Special shout out to the son. Thank you for your assistance on this one, but. To your point, it looks just like something you would see in a comic book. And
yes,
probably one of the few scenes that gets close to what I had in mind on execution. So I'm definitely happy you picked this one out. It was a fun one for me. 50 to 60 shots later, it was.
Yeah, I love what you said about making sure everybody kind of fits into a space, and they really do. Each character in this photo fits into the space that you designated for them. You don't have a lot of like people talk about like converging lines or anything like that. Like Bishop, it would have been very easy for Bishop's head to fall behind Gambit's staff or Colossus to be like, behind Gambit's head. It would be very easy for Storm's hair to intersect with his, like anything over there, but you kept it like free from her shoulder and anything distracting. Like there's nothing's crossing over. Like I think that's really cool. And, everybody fits. Again, that's the best way I can think to say it is everybody fits in the space that you designated for them well. And I think that's that illustrator aspect, that that comic book illustrator aspect where that's what you do. You're building a scene and making everybody fit exactly where they belong. It's a little bit more. It's a little more of like a proactive take than like a reactive take. And which is, again, I think that comes from your passion in comic books and your passion for the way scenes look and the way frames appear and stuff. So it's really cool. Great frame. Absolutely great
dialogue, Dan, when you write your captions, because you're excellent at capturing the voice. Like I could hear the cartoon voices when I read your captions below. And I didn't know how to like solidify that in a PowerPoint, but like in this, like, are those straight from something? Or are you just like kind of like talking in your head while you take photos? Because I could just hear you like talking to them. What would they be saying during this moment?
That's a lot of it, right? And to your point, like when I write the dialogue, I hear the voices, right? I hear the characters' voices, and I think we all have an association with the character, how we and the beautiful thing about this, right, or the depending on how you look at it, is which version of Iron Man do you hear? Which, Gambit, we've got one voice. We got the straight out, and the best thing about the animated series is like Gambit sounds in the series like how I would picture him sounding in real life. But it's like, what about Rogue? What about Storm? I mean, I sort of hear the animated versions in there too. And what I try to do, and sometimes I'm like, are people going to think I'm cheesy? Where I try to get like, you try to type things phonetically, and sometimes I'll look up like, well, how would he have said that? How would they have spelled that word, just to make sure like I'm getting it right. And sometimes I'm like, I'm trying to post this thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, Crunchy Cheeto Creations, Ryan. We became really good friends when I lost my account. He was one of the first guys to reach out to me, and we had never really interacted before on my current account, because like the one thing I would say is when I try to follow as many people back as I can. Sometimes with notifications, you can't see who all
No,
follows
you
you, who
can't
doesn't,
keep up.
and so I would tell people, like, don't get distraught by that sort of thing, because it's just sometimes you can see up to 100 things, which, I mean, it's good or bad, however you want to look at it. But I try to catch people up, and it's tough to see. But he reached out to me. We had a lot of conversations, and we got to know each other really well. And we've done some work together. And very talented guy, but he was asking me about the dialogue. I said, dude, 9 out of 10, like, I know what I want to do conceptually, but I'll write the dialogue while I'm sitting there eating a sandwich. I'm like, okay, post. So I got a general idea of what I want to do. I'll think about it in my head. There's probably some key phrases I want to put in place for sure. Like, there's some definite, like, some things I want to make sure I got to say this specific thing for this character. But like, I'll type, like, today. I mean, when I posted today for the X-Men story, like, I'm like making up on the fly. I'll have an idea what I want. I start looking, I was like, oh gosh, I want to say this, I want to say that. And I'll go back and forth. I'm like, all right, let's see if this resonates well, and I'll put it out there and go. But like, I do a lot of stuff on the fly. Like, conceptually, I'll think of some stuff, but most of it I write before I post it, and I'll just like let it go. Or I'll write it, I'll look at it before I post it, I'll check it, because it's horrible to catch all your grammatical errors on a phone, especially for me, because I'm looking like, oh, that what I can. People think, like, can this guy like read and write? And I can, I swear. But like, sometimes you'll miss some stuff because you can't see on that little bitty box that they give you, and it's so temperamental. And I've lost entire things before, so I don't want to lose it. But I try to get that and type it in real quick and let it fly. So, long-winded answer to your questions. I do a lot of stuff kind of on the fly, and I try to think about, I mean, Inspector Gadget. You hear, the classic voice. Tony Stark. I can't do Tony Stark without hearing Robert Downey Jr. I think he is Iron Man, Tony Stark personified, right? So I sort of hear those voices in there, and I sort of hear those actors, and I write this stuff out when I hear it, or when I'm writing it out. I guess I just already covered that, but I try to stay true to the characters.
With the writing stuff out, it is frustrating. Like, I know what you're saying, and I got to piggyback on that. Like, I have to type everything into a note in my phone before I post it on Instagram. I cannot write directly into Instagram because, like you said, the way, like, I don't know if it's just like I have older thumbs. I can't figure it out. Like, it drives me bonkers. I'm like, I'm trying to type into Instagram.
Is messed up on those phones now.
So like, I'll do it in my notes just to kind of like backspace and check myself and make sure I'm actually speaking English, and then I'll copy it and drop it in there.
I've done that a few times too, especially if there's a really important part of the story I want to tell. I want to make sure I get it just right, because I hate to go back and try to edit things once I've posted it.
Yeah.
So I've done that a few times too.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, this is God, you are such so much comic book inspiration. Like, really, really. Like, I know you did mention that you don't draw as much as you did. But did you ever mess around with the idea of illustrating like comic books or comic book frames or anything like that, or was it really just casual kind of fun drawing?
At one point I thought that would be kind of cool to do when I was in high school. I said, maybe I could do that. And a lot of stuff that I did, I would draw scenes, either inspired by the animated shows. So like, I wouldn't just draw a picture of Superman. I would draw a picture, and I've got one here. I drew it, I inked it with just like regular markers, and I had some colored pencils. And it's and if I wasn't so tethered to this cord with the power right now, I'd flip around and show it to you. But it's the animated version of Superman, which from my avatar, if you may have guessed, is my favorite version. He's over in an alley. You can see the black and blue silhouette from the top. It covers half of the shield, and the other half on the bottom is color. He's tearing open the shirt. The tie's flying. There's a phone. Clark, did I hear gunshots? Are you okay? Clark, are you still Clark? And he's in half of him's covered in the black alley, half of them still showing, the primary colors in the suit, and he's opening it up. That's the stuff that I would do, right? I would create a scene. So even in, my teen years, I was like, I like the idea of a story. I did this one picture inspired by Todd McFarlane's, I think it's the Perception storyline, where he was doing the Spider-Man run. He got his own Spider-Man title, where Wolverine and Spider-Man were in Canada, and they were tracking down what they thought was the Wendigo, doing these mutilations to children in the woods. And it was very powerful, right? Because it was a different take, because it again is about perceptions. The title was great. And Todd McFarlane, depending on where you sit with that, right? I mean, there's a lot of different perspectives on that, but I thought that story was just fantastic. And I did this one scene, and it was beautiful because he did it in the comic. Wolverine's crouched down. You can see his eyes, but the rest of him is complete shadow, black. And he's there in the woods, and he's like crouched down looking at the dirt. And I said, I've got to draw that picture. And I took as much time as I could, and to make sure I got it just right. I went to look just like his stuff. And I did this one other picture, just a series of panels, and it was Spider-Man. It was inspired by his McFarlane, again, his Torment storyline. And the panels, you could see in one panel, there's half of Spider-Man, rain's coming down. I did my own take with it, but inspired heavily by what he was doing with the storyline. You can see in one case, like half of his eye, half his face. That's one panel. The other, like you can see his body. I did it all with ballpoint pens. I took just a bunch of, different colored ballpoint pens. The rain was coming down. I very lightly shaded out the sky to get that right color of blue, and the drops popping off his body. And then the silhouette of Spider-Man with some light showing in there, and the yellow highlight. I think it's a yellow highlighter in some cases. And then his hand over there too. And there's just 3 or 4 panels where there's really no clear shot of Spider-Man. It's all zoomed in, cropped out, like his face, the corner of his body, stuff like that. And I did the webs like he did it, connecting it. And that's the kind of stuff that really spoke to me. Like, I love seeing that, right? Because we're so used to like, oh, here's a picture of Superman. And that's cool too, right? But, it gets back to kind of like what inspires me with a lot of my shots is like, sometimes you don't see everything. And you're kind of in a conflict. Like, well, do I want to show all of this, or do I want to show a portion of it? So do I cut off a piece? How do I do it? Right. What do you see? And for me, like, that's the stuff that always was impactful to me. And again, like, depending on where you sit with the McFarlane stuff, I will say this: the choices of shots that he would put in some of his panels and frames, I thought was fantastic, right? Because what it taught me was, you don't have to see Spider-Man in his entirety. You don't have to see Wolverine, fleshed out in color to know it's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Right. But you're like, wait, what's going on there? Right. It really kind of pulls you in. And that's the stuff that, I would say heavily inspired me, and the stuff that I used to draw and how I do my shots now too. It's that whole, that perception thing, I guess, to sort of pick on that title again. But that's
who are like your top 3 artists that you feel have most inspired you as far as like the way you do your photography? Like, what comic book artists have really had an impact?
Well, I'd definitely say Todd McFarlane, just because of the choices and the perception of things. I'm a big Darwin Cook fan.
Mm-hmm.
I love Darwin Cook. I love that classic feel. And I'd probably put, the Fleischer stuff in the same. I always will comment that the two of them, I think Darwin Cook really captured that time period. I love his style. I love the way he drew Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was a true Amazon, right? And he got that. And she stood taller than Superman. She was big, she was strong, she was powerful, and you knew it. And the way he drew her character, the way he would write it, I mean, it really kind of illustrates that. Darwin Cook, I love that classic animated but sort of 40s 50s feel, right back when Superman wasn't so powerful, and it just, I love that time period. And then I'd say, I was a big fan of Jim Lee, but I've also heard too the complaint that like Jim Lee drew everybody the same way, and I think and once you hear that, you're like, well, it's hard to go back
and
see
unhear
that
it.
differently now. Like,
Yeah.
I love that. I think the guy's a phenomenal artist, but you know, and Huberto Ramos, I think.
Mhm.
I'm trying to. I love his style. It's got a very street feel to it. You know, he's great at the masterful poses.
Yeah.
It's got a sort of an animated feel to it. Like, I love his stuff. I do. I loved when he would do the Spider-Man stuff, and he did. I think he did the one with Human Torch and Iceman, Fire and Ice storyline. I don't know if that was that popular or not. People, I remember that one. And I remember because I couldn't find the last issue of that, so I'm eternally on the hunt to find the last issue.
It'll
of that.
show
But,
up at the
yeah, I'm
weirdest
sure it
moment.
will. Yeah, I probably
It'll be
haven't
like
been
a
as
flea
diligent.
market somewhere in like the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere, and it's gonna pop up out of a long
Yeah.
box. You're gonna be like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
So I'm gonna cheat. So I'm gonna go back and say McFarlane stuff in terms of how he would draw the panels. I say heavily influenced my stuff. You know, Darwin Cook, because I love that style, and I say Alex Ross.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, and which is probably obvious when people go, oh, of course. The thing about Alex Ross is he gets it, much like Darwin Cook. Like, you know, and this is just my perception. This is just my thoughts. So, you know, I mean, the one thing that I like to do is I like to make heroes heroic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I won't say I do it 100% time. I mean, heroes are flawed, right? Heroes, they're people too, and I love that take on it with a lot of the writers and artists and storytellers today, and the photographers too. Like, they're people, they're flawed, and it makes them more real. But I do love. I think the one thing I've seen that I think, you know, with what I've done that has been well received is when I do those classic heroic moments, and maybe it goes back to my childhood, and it goes back to, you know, watching, you know, the Super Friends, or and maybe not quite the Super Friends, because, you know, but, you know, when, and I think especially in the world we live in today too, right? I mean, turn on the news. I don't know if we just have more access to the bad stuff in the world, or if it's always sort of been that way. That's an ongoing debate, right? You know, but I think in a world where there's so much turmoil and bad news and people, it's kind of nice. And Darwin Cook got this, and Alex Ross got this. And I remember Alex Ross talking about this in an interview one time, and, you know, that I read, and it's like, there's a place for heroes, right? I mean, you know, sometimes people want to have an escape, and it goes back to, I think that's been the theme that the three of us have talked about in this whole interview, is like, you want a place where you can kind of get away, and you can sort of say, why can't heroes be good people? Why can't, you know, somebody have a place they can escape to and read a story, or see a picture about, you know, someone doing something inspirational. You know, I don't know, maybe it inspires some. I mean, some of the best stories, you know, I've seen, there's Tim Sale, and I think Loeb did this one with Superman for All Seasons. Have you ever read? It was 4 parts.
Yeah.
Spring, summer, fall. And the best part about this, right, is like, you know, it was that classic Superman, and he got down, he thought he was defeated, and he decided to come back. And, you know, I love that story because it's like, okay, it's a good comeback story. It's a great story for Superman. I mean, I love a good story where, you know, there's a world out there, and I joked about it with my daughter a few times. It's, you watch the old Batman and Robin from the 60s, and you're like, oh yeah, it's so cheesy. But imagine a world where the worst thing in the world was the Joker was out loitering, right? He was trying to teach kids to loiter. I mean, it's kind of funny and stuff too, but it's kind of cool to know, like, hey, you know, Batman and Robin's going to save the day, or, you know, Superman's going to show up and he's going to make everything all right. I mean, I love that. That's the one thing I'll say. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, Snyder's take and what DC. I mean, there's an audience for everything, right?
Of
I mean,
course.
it is.
Of course.
But I would say, and I'll tell you, anybody who knows me would tell you, a huge DC fan. I had always said DC beats Marvel hands down, always. I've switched in the last few years. I think Marvel has gotten more back into, you know, and maybe it's just the depth or the bench of characters, but I think there's more heroics in there, right? That scene, as I said before, where Captain America is walking up, you know, and he's facing Thanos and his whole army, and he's going to do it by himself. I mean, that got me. That hit me. And,
yes.
you know, it's like, that was like, That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't get that in the Justice League stuff. I mean, Superman, my
No.
favorite character, and I felt like, and maybe it was different in Snyderverse, and I'll admit I hadn't watched it yet because I'm just like, I watched the other Justice League movie, and I felt like he was just there. He was just his character had no depth. And what they were doing is like, I didn't feel as connected with them, right? Maybe more so with the Flash than anybody else in that show, in
Yeah.
that movie. But I feel like Marvel, at least in the cinematic universe, has got it right. You know, like
Yeah.
when you saw like, you know, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, I mean, like, did that not choke you up? You're like, all right,
Yeah.
here's these guys. I mean, they get it. They really get it. And for me, I would love to see, and I hear this, and again, I'll say I haven't read as much of the new stuff in any of the comics. And again, some of that's by design, so I don't let anything influence this one thing I'm doing. I want to be purely my own. I got the original concept there from like when X-Men and the House of
House
X,
of
but I
M.
stopped
X, yeah.
that. Yeah, I stopped that. I said, I know where I want to go with this. There's only a few shots, but yeah, I think the thing I hear from people too is like, they want to see heroes being heroic. They want to see them save the day. I mean, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and that's kind of cool too. But I feel like, you know, people sometimes appreciate, and you know, again, not everybody, but I think sometimes people appreciate. You know, you want to see Wonder Woman lifting up that car, saving that kid, right? You
Yeah.
want to see her reaching that hand. You want to teach little girls that you can be heroes too, right? It doesn't have to be. And I kind of got put off in an interview that I heard recently because I don't think it was well handled by McFarlane about why he doesn't make more female toys. And I think I kind of get what he's saying, but I think he said it very, very poorly. No offense, Todd, but you know, there's a different way to come at it. No one's saying like. I think there's a lot of people out there that would appreciate seeing someone inspiring, and I think there's more girls out there that want to that are more involved in comics and want to see these sort of things. And anime has opened up that space a lot. My daughter, right? Like I've been dying for her to get in something, and now she likes anime. I was like, okay, fantastic, this is great stuff. You know, she loves My Hero Academia. She loves, you know, Demon Slayer. She can say all their names. My poor brain can't remember all that. Like, how do you remember this stuff? But you can't remember these comments. Yeah, but it's like, I think people want to see that. And I think there's a real audience for it. And I think if you look at the stuff that kind of trends and does well, you want to see those people that kind of show up to save the day. I mean, there's enough bad stuff going on in the world. There's enough, like, it's kind of nice to go back. And again, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just some 46-year-old guy.
That makes sense though. Like it's okay. Like you said, it's all right to see flaw. It's all right to see, like, you know, a failing hero, but you still, at the end of the day, you want there to be that you said, like, that Cap moment going at Thanos. You want that. You want that heart. You want that emotion. You want that. You know, you want that feeling of like, wow, look at that person go. Yeah, everything's going to be okay, and that person's going to make that hero is going to make the right choice. And, you know, yeah, like it's okay to have moments of flaw, but I feel like what you said is accurate. I feel like DC has sometimes focused solely on the flaw aspect at times, and it's like, all right, this is kind of depressing.
Right. Well, you asked about the whole like comment. I think if I had to switch, as much as I would love to say I don't think I could keep up with what I would have to do, and my skills are not nearly as honed as they used to be behind the pencil. And there's far more talented people out there too. But I would love to help shape the character directions. I think that would be great because I think there's so many good stories out there you could tell. You know, I would love to see some of that stuff. And there are those stories, and there's writers that come along, and they do a fantastic job of doing that sort of stuff. And I love seeing that. And, you know, I think that's something that there are. I think there's an opportunity, just my perception, but I think there's an opportunity for, you know, DC to. I've always said do parallel books, right? Do you can go your other direction, but they're saying like, here's my pure whatever, and see how it works. I don't know. I read a lot of comments. You know, Facebook groups. I try to stay out of a lot of those because some of those can get into slugfest. I'm like, all right, I'm out. You know, we're clearly not focused on the concept here, so I'll drop out of a lot of stuff if I feel like it's getting into something other than what it should be. But then, you know, Instagram, I'll read people's comments on my stuff, messages. I'll read comments on other people's posts and just random things. And just, every once in a while, Google's like, hey, here's an article. And it's like sometimes there's some good stuff behind it. But I feel like there's an audience for that. And I feel like a lot of people believe that, they're not getting the versions of the heroes that they want. And I think the key word there is heroes, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you got the boys. So, you've definitely got the complete opposite, right?
Opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. You got the Umbrella Academy, which is, I love that show. It's great. I mean, you've got those different areas where you can kind of go get your different flavors of heroes, and you can still change your stories with your main characters. Again, I'm 100% supportive of it. I love to see. There was a story called Venom, storyline with Batman, and where he had got hooked on the venom drugs that Bane had used, and he ended up like taking those to help himself get stronger. And there's a picture I actually did a shot with him with the Namor head with the beard, because I remember that, and I drew this picture when we go back to the stuff that would inspire me. I drew this picture. It was one of the covers where he was there. He was in the suit. He was unmasked. He had the beard. He had the pills flowing out of his hand. And I said, that got me. And I liked that, right? And he went downhill, but he kicked it. He locked himself in the cave. He basically went cold turkey. He said, Alfred, don't let me out. He came out, boom, he was ready to go back on.
Yeah.
And not every story, right? And you want to sort of call out different things so people don't feel like, hey, there's not someone out there that represents me. I can appreciate that, right? But I do think there's something to be said about those stories where you can kind of see your hero kind of hit rock bottom and then come back up. I guess maybe I'm saying this poorly, but I think there's an audience for all different versions out there.
Yeah.
And I just feel
people like to see different things. It's not everybody has the same taste.
Yeah. I just feel like we're missing that sort of tradition. And it's just from what I've seen, but I feel like there's an audience out there for that sort of traditional classic hero heroine.
Yeah, the stuff that people, like we kind of joked about at the beginning, the stuff that people would kind of joke about being cheesy sometimes. Like, I think there are still some people who want it. I know I do. I'm fine with it. Like, it makes me happy. I enjoy those moments. Like,
I'll buy the other stuff too. I buy the other stuff. I bought the other stuff. I mean, I think there's a good mix out there, which is great. I mean, there's an audience for everything. I just feel like we're missing that one piece.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But have you seen the new CW Flash show?
I started watching The Flash years ago when it first came out, and I watched it for a good number of years. I dropped off the last few years. It's close.
I think it's close to what you're asking for, because I feel like when I watched it, it brought me back, because especially they brought the actor from the original show as his dad.
Yeah.
Like they the things that they tried to do. So I think that's close to what you're asking for, like original classic.
Yeah, he's Jay Garrick in the Flash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of classic.
Right.
It's so fun. Again, it's heroes, and they're running at the front, like just coming at you, coming back to that whole vibe. I love this. I love it.
That was
so
fun.
Happy.
I enjoyed that one a lot. That was one where I could not quite find, and that the challenging one to me in that one is I was trying to get Miles to stand out, and I kept feeling like because his suit was all black, it was hard. So I had to get the right angle, and I really had to get down and get that one centered and kind of move him around a little bit. But
you needed him against a lighter backdrop, like you make sure he was, because otherwise he would have disappeared. Like if he had been on like Batman, like in Batman's spot, he would have kind of faded into that dark backdrop.
Yeah.
This
is
that
sort
fun.
of one eye up, one eye down. I didn't see it as well there. It's hard to catch it and still get that straight on angle, but I want that sort of like cockeyed look that he was giving him.
I love that. It's so good. It's so freaking Miles.
Yeah. All right. Are you guys ready for the challenge photos?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Why not?
Wait, what are the challenge photos? Okay.
So I had to take a photo for the challenge. I told you exploration and discovery, and Dan apologized on this because I was supposed to let you know for the week. So Scott posted his earlier, which is what you
Okay.
saw, which is the write-ups of him trying to not imitate, but how do you say it? Like give your style his own edge. So
Own
with
spin, yeah. Basically,
Gotcha.
just trying to, because basically, before I know somebody's going to be on, even if it's somebody that I did follow prior, I'll usually scroll through the person's feed many times, and try to find those things that stand out. And then Steph and I will just have fun trying to kind of pick out those iconic elements to your style and to your feed and try to incorporate them into our own photography, basically. So it was an adventure, and I freaking love that Steph went full Marvel on this, because I am
love it.
not used to Steph going full Marvel. This is cool.
I love it. I love the throne that he's in too. So you got Bolt, you got Medusa, and I cannot remember the dog's name.
Lockjaw.
he's like my favorite.
Lockjaw is hilarious. Like
Fantastic Four to me is like classic. That's like my first like Marvel comic book experience is basically that. So your Richards dialogue is like my jam. So I had to like do my interpretation, because I think the Inhumans kind of got disserviced in the film, cinematography, television. It's like they didn't really get it. But that episode of the Fantastic Four cartoon, when they got introduced, it's still me. I love them. So
yeah.
This is so great. This is a comic book moment. This feels like a comic book moment.
It does.
I can picture it being illustrated.
It's definitely got that sort of, it's got that sort of royal feel to it, right? Because he's there, and I like it. I think this is so. You're going to get more into Marvel now, is what I'm hearing, Steph.
I just haven't really like taken photos of it because it doesn't really fit in with my feed too much.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's hard to deviate, right? Because you get sort of that signature style and thing that for, and then your following gets built into that, and then you're kind of like, and sometimes like it's the toughest thing in the world to do. Is like, I got this other stuff. I mean, I can do so many other things. You want to introduce those things, so I can appreciate that. I can feel you on that one, but I love what you did here. I like that.
I loved seriously that you did go Marvel, because I considered it, but then the ideas of what I had, I didn't have anybody that worked together, because I'm not a Marvel Legends collector. I have Marvel Legends figures. I have plenty, but none of them really were going to make any sense. So it was like, I just kind of held back on that. Cause if it had just been if you were more of a portrait toy photographer, I probably would have gone Marvel, but
Gotcha.
I don't think, like I said, I didn't have anybody that could create a scene like I would have wanted to kind of capture you. But this is good stuff. I want to see you do more with him. I want to see that puppy show up everywhere now.
I do too.
All the time.
I'm going to be looking on your page for more of that. I'm going to stalk it.
I bought Maverick because I was going to do, I was telling Scott about this because I was going to do a virus series, because Maverick are like some of my favorite characters in Marvel. And so I was like, anybody who got the Legacy virus, I was going to do like a whole series on it. But this is a Black Bolt, and everybody was like hating on him. So I was like, no, I'm going to do a photo.
Good.
Yeah, he's a tough character, right? Because he doesn't. You either love him or you hate him, I think. And then you sort of got that tension between the humans and the X-Men too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like it.
And we got Scott,
which I saw today.
Yep, saw this today. Yeah, first tilt. I think. I mean, I may have done slight angles, but this is the first time I consciously made the decision to do that. I wanted to have characters coming at you, and again, try to do it with a Star Wars feel. And I wanted to do an idea of the story was open for interpretation, but I like the idea of Boba just kind of exploring the lands of Tatooine and coming across Imperial cells after the fall of the Empire and just taking him out by himself just for fun, his own entertainment.
That's the cool thing about it too, right? Is you clearly you know, Boba is like the draw here, and he's out of focus, but it doesn't even matter as much, right? Because that's the cool thing about it is, it kind of it flips a bit, and it's like you draw to him, you look to him, and you're like, okay, this is, and that's the thing, right? I always think sometimes like, you know, and I said this before, but I'll flip it a little bit. Like sometimes like that main focus point is, it goes back to the Chris Carter things, like the things you don't see, and Boba's blurred out. You know he's back there. You see the trooper clear and day, but that's to me that's kind of like the hunter aspect to it too, right? It's like, it sort of puts a certain amount of tension in there for the trooper, and you can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
So I like that. Yeah. I like the tilt.
It was fun. It was fun.
Like the
it was
tilt.
a good time.
Yeah.
I had a good time with this. I really did. This was an entertaining one, and especially it was really fun bringing it into my own feed and my own style, like taking parts of you and putting in there, because it was some stuff I hadn't really played a whole lot with, and it was cool. It was cool to have a good time with that.
Yeah, I like it.
And Dan said like 8 that he wanted me to pick from, so this is the one I picked.
Yes, yeah, I know. She asked me if I had a shot. I was like,
so
I have
good.
A shot. The guys who know me from Out of Order Productions will be the first one to tell you I got plenty of shots. I got stuff in the can for like years. It's like if I take the trouble to get it out, I go nuts with it. So
this is great.
Yeah.
What a great image.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about it before with the backgrounds, and I love that. Like, you can see what it is. It's all there. It doesn't disappear at all. It's part of the scene. But like you said, it's not distracting. It's not hyper focused on the scenery in the background. It's really about them. And the Spider-Man pose is so good. It's so good. It's so comic booky. It really is. It's that lighter spirited comic book pose that is so Marvel and so good. I love it.
I should do the challenge back. I should say the two of you get to write the caption for this one.
Oh God, could you imagine? I'd be stuck in my like, I'd be just sitting in the basement for hours trying to come up with like, okay, what is happening in this moment? What is being said right now?
Yeah. But that should be the challenge. I'm gonna let the two of you write the caption for this.
All right, we're gonna do this.
I'll publish. You can either do it together or I'll do both.
Oh my God.
And I'll tag each of you the caption. But so there's my challenge back.
I'm
excited. You get to
excited.
write the caption for this one I posted.
I'm excited. We're gonna do it.
Oh
yeah.
I wrote a comic.
A whole story.
It'll be like a novel.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go.
Remember the Instagram limitation.
Oh God.
I have to like go back
limitations.
And oh yeah, I know. I know.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
So frustrating. Oh man, Dan, this has been absolutely awesome. Like getting to like hearing your perspective. I just love, again, for our listeners and stuff, like I tease, we actually have listeners.
We do.
They like us. And you have a different perspective than a lot of, other people we've had on here. And I think it's cool to hear that. You are very like, comic book inspired, illustrator inspired, and photographer. And I think that there's something really fun about that. And I think people could gain a lot from looking at your page and trying stuff. And that's part of why we do in the style of thing, is to try things that we haven't done and to just play around and be silly and whatnot. Because I like to hear from different toy photographers. It would be very easy for me to just spend my time on Instagram looking at other Star Wars Black Series figure photographers. There's plenty of them out there, and I could waste all of my time just dedicated to that. But to be honest, I don't always follow that. I tend to look at people who shoot different things than I do. And I think that's something that's really, really fun about your page. Is it is unique. It stands out. It's something worth scrolling through and taking your time going through. And I encourage people to do that more and more. I want to see people start, it's fun for things to pop up in your feed and you like it, comment, blah, blah, blah. But I want people to once in a while start going back and, a photographer that they notice a photo that they like. Okay, cool. You like that photo. Now go to their page and start at the beginning and work your way through and really follow the process and see where they've come from and what they did, because
Absolutely.
you'll come up with your own cool ideas and you'll try things. And it's and I think that's something that's really fun about you, your style is very distinct. And I like that. I like that a lot. I like people who have a very particular way of doing things, and you have it. It's cool. I love looking at everything you do, and I had a blast going through your feed. Like it was really, really fun getting to see that. I felt like we talked about nostalgia and stuff. I felt like I was reading like old comic books again. That's exactly what it felt like from top to bottom. So thank you. I appreciate it. So
Well, I appreciate you taking a look at it. And that's the thing too. I'll say I know a lot of people who have deleted their old stuff, and like I would say, don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, go back and look at your old stuff. Be proud of your old stuff. I mean, watch the journey, right? And that's the cool thing about anything in life, right? Is we all start somewhere. So don't ever lose sight of where you started, right? That's the greatest disservice you can do yourself, is to go out there and wipe out the older stuff, right? You're never going to see growth if you don't, look back to where you started from. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Dan, I know we have your handle down here at the bottom, but do you do anything else related to the toy stuff? Like, do you have any other pages, Twitters, Facebooks, etc., that you would share one out, or just your?
I mean, I've got a couple other things I used to play around with, but nothing major. I think this one's become almost taking on a life of itself. So
Yep.
I live in this one space. Yeah. And then the rest of it,
though, right?
What's that?
You have Out of Order still, right? Out of Order Productions.
Out of Order, yeah. So Out of Order Productions. That's me. House of M, Toys Being Toys, Nerd Flanders, Rio Exter, and Silky Bob Posen, and I think Vince Go-Go's back with us too. We started that up, and Dr. Nevermore and Burkhead Toys were members before too originally, and we try to feature stuff, right? We use the hashtag O3P features, and we called it out of order because all the messages were kind of out of order when we were trying to read them. We started off, we're actually doing the hashtag O3P _ March Madness Villains 2022 tag. So all month long we do the villains features, and then outside of the main themes we do like the hashtag O3P features, but we try to feature different people. We try to go out there and find people who are like a lot of the other tags, trying to show people off in the hobby and the community, and so we try to do that as just one more thing that we offer. And a lot of times there's the tags you do like for the night. We say, no, stick it out there, we'll try to feature you. Everybody's got a different shift. Sometimes life gets in the way. We'll try to cover each other, and sometimes we might miss a day, but we're usually out there at least 4 to so days of the 7-day week, making sure we're featuring people and pushing stuff up. So
awesome.
Just something we try to give back and highlight. And sometimes we offer some Amazon gift cards as prizes too, just to sort of say, participate for fun, participate for money. But we try to make sure that we rotate stuff out too. Sometimes we'll mess up and we'll feature the same person multiple times, and we try not to do it. We try to play favorites.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things we've said was, don't do that. And if the feed's dry and tags dry, like, okay, we'll do this, but we try to make sure we highlight different people along the way. We're flawed, we're humans. We might make a mistake and feature one person multiple times, but for the most part, we try to do the right thing. We try to highlight other people and give them some additional exposure, and just say, this is something we like. Let's show this one off. So
that's awesome.
Out of Order Productions. Yeah.
Well, Dan, seriously, thank you so much for being on here. It was truly a pleasure. I'm honored to finally talk to you and actually get to know you. So appreciate it.
Scott, I hope we'll be talking more. Scott and I talk all the time occasionally. But Scott, now that we know each other officially, it'd be good to talk to you more. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Awesome.
I'm gonna hit the scare.
Well, y'all, thank you for listening to another wonderful episode of the combined SBN F-Stop Rebel podcast. Truly a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed everything. Remember, please do not grow up. It's a waste of time. I am Scott, F Stop Rebel, and there's obviously Steph.
Yep, I'm still here, and you can find me at Slag My Thrilla or the SBN. You'll see all the credits on the end, but I always want to say, just guys, stay awesome and keep it up.